All right, hey there, everybody. Dave Souza with Fry and Bacon Studios, and we're going to go through some audio stuff this morning. I've been, uh, although I've been quite away from the forums for the last 6 weeks, I've been able to read them, keep up with them, and I've been noticing a lot of audio questions. I had done an audio series, started one. I think I got about 5 episodes right now that kind of walks you through. All about audio, the basics of audio, and how to kind of create audio and working with loops and some of the foundation and fundamental elements of working with sound. I'm a certified sound engineer, and one of the things that I noticed that I'd seen quite a bit recently in the forums is a lot of people really just discounting audio as something to know and something that's really a foundational part of your game. And having done audio for film and video, what a lot of people don't know is a lot of the audio that you capture on set is sometimes it's just not usable, or it just doesn't play with emphasis and really help bring your scene to life. Audio is really in the video format. It's really critical. It's the lifeblood of really breathing the life into the images that you're watching on a scene, and a lot of it's actually created. If you've ever seen any of the LucasArts stuff with Industrial Light and Magic and some of the other film companies, and when they show you doing sound stuff, some of the sounds that they create are really manipulations of sounds that have come from things that are really not even associated with the actual what something really sounds like. It's a fictional representation, but what it does is it really helps bring a realism or an emphasis or an amplification to a situation. So it's really the same thing with the game. We're surrounded by sounds, and a lot of it we take for granted. But when you're not an engineer creating stuff for film, and you're trying to capture the ambiance, like when you go outside, usually there's birds, or you hear cars moving around in the background, or depending on the environment you're in or where you live, there's, wind, and there's all these little kind of subtle noises that the human consciousness takes for granted, but it really, sometimes you watch something and you go, wow, something just seems missing, and it's usually really in the small things where things really come alive. So what I want to do real quick is we're going to watch this little scene from Iron Man 1, and what we're going to do at first is I'm going to show you how really vital sound is to really bringing elements of a film alive. And it's the same thing for your game. It really enhances the experience in ways that you just don't think about it. So we're going to watch this first little segment where there's kind of a lot of cool stuff going on. And we're gonna listen to it without any audio, and then we're gonna play it with audio. And I want you to really kind of see the difference in how all these little kind of effects that are kind of buried in there, bring the thing to life and really make it real. So let's just take a minute and watch this. I know it's going to be kind of boring because you're just going to be watching these images, but I think it's really important to show the contrast between these two elements. So let's go ahead and play this. All right, so that's it without sound, and there is a lot going on visually, and it does keep you kind of interested, but it just lacks something. So let's just go ahead and let's just watch this with sound, and we're going to see the difference all these little sounds that they put in make. You can see how the music's building this anticipation right here. You got all the little servos and movements. Even that little when it opens, see? I mean, there's probably 100 tracks in this thing. Even the glow, just of the thing charging up. The music building to the climax here. And so there we go. I mean, you break that down and you watch it, let's say if you have Iron Man or any movie with special effects, and you kind of see how the audio builds that whole environment. You've got the music in the background that kind of sets the tone of anticipation. You know, Iron Man's getting ready to go out to do battle, and you've got this dun 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 dun. You know, this music kind of building and going along in the background, and you've got probably 100 tracks in there of the little servos and all these little noises and little timings as everything moves that kind of bring you and draw you into that environment. And really, it's the same thing with your games. You know, you're trying to bring people into an experience, and you know, you really have to, you know, think about your audio when you're doing stuff to really enhance your game and really, you know, bring people into your experience depending on what's going on. And all these little elements can be added into your game to really, and it's the small things. You know, anybody can throw in a music track and some basic sound effects, but it's all those little things, those little moments that go on that really bring life to your game in audio. So let's go through. I want to debunk like some because I've actually done testing on a lot of this stuff, and I don't think people on the Gamesalad forums intentionally mean to misrepresent what really goes on in Gamesalad, but I think there's a lot of stuff that gets passed around. It's almost kind of like wives' tales, or you know, things that kind of like, oh, chicken soup is good for a cold, and you know, drink cod liver oil, and these kind of wives' tales they call them. They get passed around, and you know, they kind of bring a life of their own, and then really there's no basis in fact. It's just, you know, something that gets said and then gets passed around. So what we're going to do today is we're going to look at some of this stuff and how you know, what are the differences between so-called music and Gamesalad and sounds, and really define that stuff and get to the root of what's going on behind the scenes in Gamesalad and with the logic and stuff like that. And as well, what we're going to do is debunk some of the myths about sound and music in Gamesalad. So let's talk about a couple things really first. In my audio series, Audio 102, this is one myth that I'm going to debunk right now, is that people have this impression that Gamesalad compresses music files. Not true. If anybody can show me testing that can prove to me otherwise, that Gamesalad is compressing audio files, because I've done my own testing, I don't see it. In my Audio 102, I show you 2 identical files that I published out through Gamesalad. One file is just a bare file that I publish. There's nothing in it. No images, no behaviors. It's just a new file that I made, named, and published out. And that was a certain size, okay, when it came back to me. Then I took a file and I added an audio file to it, okay? And it was, I believe it was probably an MP3, or usually I like to use ACC for sound files, or either an MP4. It was a basic file. And I published that with just that file in there. And now that file came back to me the exact same size, plus the original file that was naked, as my audio file was when it went in there. So by my testing of actually publishing that way, one program with nothing in it, another program with only a sound file in it, I show you that there is no compression, because it might be changing the file type, but there's no actually heavy compression going on. You need to compress your files by your choice. Now, compression, as I show in that Audio 102 series, degrades the level, and there's certain things that it'll matter with, some it won't. You have to compress your stuff before you import it into Gamesalad. So if you want those files smaller, you need to do that yourself. Gamesalad does not compress, change the algorithm of audio files. It just doesn't happen. Okay, myth number 2. With sound, well, let's talk about sound and I'll debunk this next myth. There are 2 types of files in Gamesalad, and they're dictated by behaviors. So we're going to go over here and we're going to look at these behaviors. We've got a play music behavior, okay, which Gamesalad describes this as: this action triggers a music file to play. Set the music to play once or to loop repeatedly. All right, so let's go ahead on. I've got an actor here that I've named play music. And we're going to go ahead and just drag a straight play music behavior in here. And so what we're going to see is this is a very kind of simple behavior. Now, let's talk about terms for a minute. Music, okay? Basically in Gamesalad, all audio files, an audio file is a recording of some kind of sound, period, end of story, whether it's music performed by a band, or whether it's a sound effect of a ball bouncing, or whether it's a sound effect of something else, or whatever it is, your voice, it doesn't matter. Anything recorded, digitally and put into a file format is a sound file. So you got to get past this terminology that I really kind of hope Gamesalad finds something a little bit more definitive and clever to call this stuff. Because basically, you can bring in any type of sound in a file into either one of those behaviors, whether it's music or sound. What is different is the type of file type, okay, that you can use with one of these particular behaviors. All right, so if you have an MP4, let's say, okay, that can only be brought in as a music file, period. So I'm going to show you that. Let's go over to the Sounds tab. And you see I've got 2 sounds. You can tell a sound by, it's got this little wavelength here, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to import an M4A, okay? So I've got an M4A here, and I'm going to import it. And what you're going to see is I'm not going to get an option. It's not giving me an option to bring it in as a sound file. So M4As can only be brought in as what Gamesalad defines as a music file, which means that if it has this musical note symbol, that this file can only be controlled by the play music behaviors. That's it. It doesn't have anything to do with what's actually recorded in this file. It only has to do with what the file type is. Okay? So in other words, because I brought this in after, I've got to bring in a new behavior because now I've imported it, and it'll be in the list. So I bring up the play music, and now you can see I've got my copy in here of this music file. And you'll see I can't select the sound files. I can only select the one that's a music file. So forget about the terms as you traditionally understand the music and sound. Those things only are terms that relate to what you can actually do with the behavior and that particular file that's been brought in a certain way in Gamesalad. So basically with a play music behavior, we can use these other associated behaviors with it. A pause music behavior, okay, and the stop music behavior, okay. So I don't think there's any others. I just check real quick. I don't tend to use the music stuff a lot because it's kind of limiting. So we got pause music, play music, and then we've got stop music. All right.